Welcome to day 3 of our Countdown Perpetual Calendar project. Now, yesterday I gave you some homework to get everything cut out, and it is really important it's cut out ahead of time because this is going to take some time to put together, and we're going to put it together in 2 stages because you need everything perfectly dry before you can move on to the next stage. Now, on day 1, we did all of our planning and gathering materials. And yesterday we did the prepping the design in Design Space, and I showed you a lot of little things that you needed to do in order to get this cut properly. Today, day 3, we're going to assemble the sliders. We're going to glue the rings, the date spinners, we're going to add rings and spinners to a layer, and then we're going to let it dry, and then we'll finish the assembly tomorrow. So let's move over here to our demo table where I have everything all cut out right now. I have everything cut out, and I cut out multiple different colors of things. So we have lots of rings here all together. I just taped them together so they wouldn't fall apart. And of course these are our white rings. I'll just move those over. Here's the little pieces that are going to go on top. I cut out a bunch of them so that I could pick my color the way I want it. This is the stand, and we're going to worry about that tomorrow, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Now we have all kinds of these rings. These were the partial rings that we put together, and of course we're going to have to sort these all out, and we're going to work on that today as well. And we have 2 sets here of different parts of what we want to have for front and back as we put our spinner parts together. Now I'm going to be using those 2 today, and this is a backing. This was optional, and I'll show you that tomorrow. I'll move that out of the way. And then tomorrow we're also going to be making sure that we put our other 2 pieces together. Now I used a decorative piece that we're going to be working like this, and then you can add some other elements to it. And of course for our little rings here we can use white or a nice dark purple color. Now we're going to put this part together tomorrow as well. And what we're going to work on here are simply the spinners and one of the backing pieces, because we need to make sure this is all going to fit together. Now what's going to happen is all of this is going to fit on here, and of course we are going to also have the backing here. Now I tape these together so it wouldn't fall apart on me. As you can see, this is where different things are going to go, and we have to double up on a lot of stuff. So before we get to gluing those together, I'm going to take all of these pieces and we are going to start adding pieces to it. So let me just take my tape off the back here. And got another piece of tape over here. I don't actually need that circle, so I can just leave that in place. Now, let me just flip this back over. The only parts I care about here now are the numbers, the months, and the days of the week. Nothing else matters. These are the in-between. I'm just going to set those aside. Now I have another piece here that I've got to take apart. Just grab it straight across. And of course I've got my little bucket here for all my little garbage pieces. Now this doesn't matter which side it goes. I don't need the centerpiece quite yet, so I can move that around. But what I need to do is match the 2 pieces together here. So there we go. That one matches with that. It just makes it thicker. I don't need this thinner ring, but I need the next one here. And we're going to glue this together as well. And then finally, I've got them as thicker pieces in the center, and then finally we're going to glue those together. So that's the first step. Now we have all these other rings, and we're going to have to group these up. So I've got a smaller one, a medium one and a big one, and we have even a bigger one. Okay, I've got the first 4 all sorted out here. Let's just grab these other ones. That looks like a fairly large one. We've got 2 of the large ones. This looks like a third one. Perfect. So we've got all those 3. We're going to glue those together. See if I can get these together. 1, 2, 3. So we have another set here. We've got 2 more sets to go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And then the 3 smaller ones. And these are all going to go together in groups. So what we want to do, let's start with this smaller one. And remember, you're going to have to match each of these exactly, because anything off and these will not spin. All right, now the other thing I have is this is flapping around. So someone kindly told me to put an elastic band and then put it down like this, and will make my life a lot easier. Now I am just putting dots of glue. I don't want a lot of glue. I don't want it smushing around, so just little dots all the way around. Now it takes a few seconds to dry, so this makes it a lot easier to handle than if you had a big bunch of glue that dries immediately. And that's why I don't use the Barely Art glue on here. It is too much right away. There we are. Now I want to glue these together perfectly, so what I'm going to do is just drop it on, smooth it around with my fingers, just make sure everything is in place, and then push it down. Now we're going to set that aside to dry. That looks like it matches perfectly. Don't see any extra pieces. No, it looks like it's one piece. So we have our first part done. We are going to do the same with this, and then of course we're going to put our 3 parts together on the other one. And I'm just going to show you these ones, and then I'll show you one of the others, and then your homework is going to be, of course, to put them all together. Actually, we might do them all right now, because I want to put the spinners together just to show you how easy it is to make this. So let me see if I can go a little faster here. Okay, so once again, you want to match it perfectly. So I just drop it down and then get my fingers in there to make sure everything works, and then press it down. If you think it's off a little bit, just go all the way around with your fingers to make sure things match. Don't get a paper cut. Now those all match, so we have 2 of them done. And this just takes a little bit of the process, and I'll try and go a little faster for you. Once again, sort of just drop it into place and then match it up. These are a lot easier to do than the other rings we're going to do. Now you see this is slightly off, so I'm just going to push it into place and then slide my hands all the way around. Extra piece here. All right, so we have our date spinners now. That's great, and they're nice and thick. Now just set those aside to dry. So let's grab these. Now there are 3 parts to these. This is the important part. Get a piece of glue at the very end and then work your way through the same way. Now there are 4 sets of these. You may wonder, what the heck? Why do we need 3 of this and only 2 of the others? Because this is forming a grouping that's going to allow you to have the spinners in between and they won't jump over top. Okay, another big blob right there. Now the toughest part here is to match these up, because you're matching at the top. You're not matching your numbers, but you're matching through the side here. So I always take one of these and then work my way through, make sure everything is lined up, and then work it through to the other piece. And you will have to do a lot of moving of this in order for it to really come out the other side. And there we go. That all matches up. We have one set in place here. So you've got paper wants to stick to me. All right, you're going to do the same again. And this is why we have to set these aside to dry. One at the end, and then work your way through. I'll try and be as quick as possible here, but this is a lot of work as you go through. You may have to pause the video and then, of course, get your gluing done. This is a backwards way for me, so. All right, so now I'm going to have another one of my tracks here. Get them all matched up. Just slide it into place. I want them to match because this is the track they're sliding through. This is what's going to hold everything into place. All right, we have our first track all ready. I'm just going to test it out to make sure I've got everything lined up. All right, this is a track, of course, that's going to fit inside here. And that looks great. And I just want to check and make sure everything can spin around it. Ah, that's perfect. So now we're ready to do our next one. And that's the slightly smaller one. And of course with this one, it's going to go on the outside of this. So we are building this piece by piece. Now the hardest part is putting 3 pieces together versus just the 2. And I'm going to go in same direction I normally go so I can see what I'm doing here. Now that, of course, is going to fit on the outside over here. Make sure it all fits. I know these are not lining up right now, but not to worry. I'm just more worried about things that are going to fit. And then, of course, this is going to fit on the outside of that. And we have to make sure that it can lie in place and then be able to spin. And yes, it can. I just want to make sure it moves okay, and it does. All right, so we got 2 more of these to do. And it's going to take you a little while to get these all glued in, so please feel free to stop the video and then work on yours at that end. I'm going to start at this end again. It'll fit beautifully. Now, of course, this is going to go on the outside here. And then, of course, we're going to add our other numbers here. And we have one more set to put together. Let's get the bigger ones are a little more difficult to deal with. All right, we are all prepped up for exactly what we need to do. But now, this is just the first part, and we'll do the rest of it tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we line everything up inside of here. But in order to do that, we need one of the circles we originally had. And we just want to make sure that we're going to line everything up the way it should be. So I'm going to put this one back in the center. Just grab all of these together. And by having this in the center, we're going to be able to then start lining everything up. Now, I'm not going to be leaving this in the center, but you're going to pretty well eyeball it that that's exactly where you want it to be. And I will take it out after I glue my first piece in. And of course, I want a smaller piece here. What's going to happen with this, you're going to line this up right around this so that it matches here on the outside edges. So as you can see, it's going to fit that circle inside without an issue. You want it as snug and tight as possible to that circle. So I'm just going to hold it down here. That looks pretty darn good. So I want these matched up here, and that is the big thing, is you don't want this to overlap. So I'm going to start by just adding a tiny bit of glue underneath this one right here. Hold it down and make sure it matches inside here. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side here. Just going to add a little bit of glue. And I want this to come to the edge. I'm just going to hold it in place. I'm going to take this circle out now so that we can see the circle that we have in place. Now I've only tacked down these two pieces so far, and I do that so that I have a basis of which I can attach the other pieces, because the circles inside are going to, of course, then be a little easier to work with. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this over. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to dot inside here all the way around and then flatten it. There we go. I've got that all glued into place. So that is going to be the basis of where we're going to start with all the other pieces. Now I don't want any glue flowing over. If it does, it'll stop you from adding the spinner pieces. So I really should have this dry 100%, but I know we're not going there with it. Now, this is a spinner. It is not going to, of course, have any effect on anything. It's just going to lie inside that circle. If you find that it's a little bit too snug, what we can do is just pull it up a little bit and bring it in so it's going to match better. You want to make sure it is going to fit, and it does. And this is going to be the spinner that comes around on this side, and it pops out when you don't have the top piece on it. And I know it gets a bit tight, but you can adjust things around. All right, so your job right now is to go ahead and, of course, add the next ring right after this. And I just want to make sure that ring is going to fit properly. It's going to be a little easier. This first one is a little tougher. And I notice that we've got it a little tight here. So I'm just simply going to pull this up a little bit and bring it down just a small amount and see if we can get it to fit in properly, because I need it to sit the way we want it, not the way it wants to go. Okay, so I've got it sitting here and here, and I see these pieces over here aren't working as well as I want, so I'm going to bend my circle to fit what we want, and that's the easy part. And if I have to trim, I'll have to trim. Now that looks a lot better than what we had, so I'm just going to flip this up a bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on these pieces. Got a little extra up here, and I want it to sit inside that circle. That's the important part. If it's a little bit too big, do not worry about it, because we can trim off those extra pieces. Now that's sitting nice and flat, and I can turn my spinner here. So we have a little extra to trim here. So let's just pull the spinner off. All we need is our scissors, and you can tighten these a little more if you have to. It's a little harder to cut because there are 3 layers here. There we go. All right, now this one's coming up a little bit, so let's just add a little extra glue here. We need those to hold into place. Now we're going to be gluing something on top of those as well. But our next job, of course, is I want this spinner in place, make sure it sits. And of course, now we want the next inner circle. So the easiest part, because we already have one in place, the next one to fit down is going to be a lot easier. It is the first one. Now I got to slide this a little bit so the ends match, and as you can see, we don't have a problem with this one because we can adjust it as we need it. So let me just grab some glue all the way around, because once we have the first one in place, the rest of this is going to be a lot easier. Let me just get these little dots going. Off screen here, sorry. Just want to touch it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so a few of those. Now the easiest part here is I'm going to bring it around here. So I'm going to match this one up first and then work my way around this way, making sure everything fits in between, and then I can press it down. I'm not going to be able to do much more with this after we get the last little layers in place. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to move these into place as we want our spinners to work their way through. All right, I'm going to push this in just a little bit. Now sometimes you're going to get a little extra on this edge. So I see it's not going in and it's not matching down here. That's why I like a glue, or I can push a little bit. Just want to make sure our spinner can spin, and then that's of course the best part of the whole thing. So we have a little extra down here that is not going to cooperate. So we're going to use a little trimming. We want to leave these parts the same, but we have a little trim that we're going to have to do on here because things may not have matched up exactly the way we wanted them. Let me just move this out of the way. So we've got a little bit of a mess here. So if your circle is not perfect, all you need to do is just take the knife and work your way so that you trim off just little pieces of it so that it can spin. Now, I'm not that accurate with these, but I do much better with a pair of scissors, and I want to just trim just a little bit off the outside here. Big pair of scissors for the little bit I want to trim. Now, nobody's going to see because these are all mechanisms on the inside. Cutting a little bits off here, not much as you can see, because it's just a little bit off. You could actually sand them off if you wanted to. Okay, I might have enough off of that one. Just want to check for our spin. Yep. It's a lot better than it was. I want to make sure those fit. And this one's a little bit more on this side, so I am going to take a bit off of our extra little circle here. It's 3 pieces. It's a little tougher to do, but it doesn't matter because you want to make sure things spin. Don't have to take much. I'm sorry if I get my head in there, but you just want to make sure you're trimming off just enough to make it work. Even though we have designed it to fit perfectly, you will find when you glue pieces together that it does not work the way you think it's going to work. Okay, let's see if I can take that apart. We only use little dots of glue. It's a lot easier to work with. Now when you're doing any craft, you're going to find you're going to have to make adjustments no matter what. No matter how perfect you think things are. Now, looks like we've got enough off of here. Let's see if I can take a little bit off the bottom yet. If you make yours work perfectly the first time, congratulations. Okay, so we have a little bit off the bottom here. There we go. Now I'm going to try my spinner again, and hopefully I've given it enough room. Take it over here. And just a little bit more on this end. Just a little bit more. Let me just leave this in place. Just make a mark where I need to trim it. There we go. I know where that has to be. And that's me being quick, trying to push the layers together. Now these are well hidden underneath in your calendars, so you're not going to see what's going on here. You're probably saying, why did you glue it on first? Well, you really can't tell if things are going to work properly until they're actually glued into place. See if I can just pull that off now. There we go. Let's just take the little edges off here. Got enough off, it might slide now. Just move this out of the way. Ah, much better. Okay, so this one's going to fit in, and I'm just going to hold this around. I just want to make sure I can slide it. And yes, I can. Absolutely perfect. So now what we have to do, of course, is add the next layer, which is this one. And we'll see if we need any adjustments on this. I'm just going to slide it into place here. Make sure we can drop this in. We've got that one. And then we're going to drop in this extra piece. And before I glue that one in, I'm going to make sure I can spin it around as well. Way all the way in. Hold that into place and make sure I can spin it. It's not, this other one's not glued, so it's a little tougher. Yep, and that will spin just fine. And then of course we're going to glue our last piece into place. And then we have to let that sit and dry overnight. So I'm going to let you finish yours off. And this is the end of day 3, and we're going to finish our assembly here tomorrow.